As the roamer, you need to help your team secure the Lord. But this is easier said than done, and one small mistake can make your team lose the entire game. In this video, I will show you 7 important tips to make you the perfect roamer during Lord team fights, starting with the first one, which most roamers actually forget about. Number 1. Always save your battle spell for Lord team fights. Do not use your flicker or battle spell to kill an enemy if there's still around a minute before the Lord spawns, because they'll just respawn in time for Lord team fight, and since your flicker cooldown is longer than respawn time, it means you won't have your battle spell for it. Focusing on the kills instead of Lord can make your team lose the team fight and the Lord as well. You should only use your battle spell to kill an enemy before the Lord spawns, when you are sure they won't spawn back in time. Number 2. This is a mistake that even Kiboi did, who's an MPL pro player. Don't try to initiate from behind if your allies are too far away. When wanting to contest the Lord, where the enemies are the ones who started it, you must be the front line for your team as a tank, because your other teammates will be zoned by the enemies or killed. If you try to initiate from behind, when your allies can't get closer, it creates a distance between you and your team, and it'll be harder for your allies to follow up, which can lead to a failed team fight and loss of Lord. Furthermore, this leads to another mistake of camping for too long. Tigreal most likely noticed that he couldn't engage or find any opportunities, and because he camped for too long, it allowed the enemy to easily attack his allies, the moment they started to realize he wasn't near his team. Staying hidden from the map is important, but overstaying in a bush far from your team is a big mistake. Number 3. CC the enemy jungler before retribution. If there's a retribution battle happening between the junglers, try to stun the enemy jungler right before they can take the Lord with it. This also means that you should save your crowd control CC for when that happens, and don't use it on someone else during that moment, as securing Lord is more important than a kill. Number 4. Most roamers actually make this mistake without noticing it. Don't initiate a teamfight while your jungler is taking the Lord. If your jungler can't or doesn't want to follow up, because he wants to take the Lord, don't initiate a teamfight, because you'll end up outnumbered in it. Perhaps your team has a gold lead or you initiate a 5-man ultimate, but the problem is you never know how the teamfight will turn out if not everyone commits to it, where instead it's better to zone. Another problem in initiating a 4 versus 5 situation is that you might end up trading kills with the enemies. At that point your jungler might not get the Lord in time and lose it completely, or even if he does, you won't gain as much as you could from it, because the enemies will gain more from your traded kills, since you normally need your whole team to be able to push the enemy's inhibitor turrets, so dying before pushing with Lord might give them an easier time to defend, and you'll end up wasting your chances to push, unless your ally spawns in time, of course. So fighting while the jungler is taking the Lord will most likely make the game last longer, giving the enemies a chance for a comeback. Instead of making this mistake, you should follow the next tip, which is Number 5. Zone the enemy jungler. I know most of you already know this, but there is more to it than you think. What you should do instead of initiating is to zone the enemy jungler, but remember to not put all your focus on the jungler, as a fight could happen between other enemies and teammates. However, if the enemy jungler is late or missing, it could mean several things. Usually, the enemy jungler takes orange or purple buff before the Lord spawns. In that case you can zone near the path from buff to Lord. In another scenario, he could have been prepared and camped in any of these bushes. So if you can't spot the enemy jungler anywhere, try to check these bushes just in case he's not in any of them. But when going near the bushes, you have to be careful, because he could dash towards the Lord the moment you find him in the bush, or use you as a stepping stone if he's Lancelot to steal the Lord. Number 6. Retreat after getting the objective. Even after your team secures the Lord, you shouldn't initiate a team fight, because you risk your team dying, and if one of you dies, you will have a hard time pushing when Lord comes. Your goal isn't to kill them, but rather end the game. Notice how these pro teams retreat after getting the Lord, because they don't want to risk dying and giving their Lord for free. However, if you and your team still have your skills ready, and you're confident that you can make a huge engage on them, then go for it. But often when both teams have all their items, it's better to retreat, despite having a gold lead, because a gold lead doesn't matter anymore after 20 minutes in game. Number 7. Reset the Lord if your jungler retreats from it. In situations where your jungler is low HP and backs away, you shouldn't hold the Lord or let the other allies attack it, because your jungler is the one with retribution. If he goes to attack a creep to get his health back, during that time anything can happen, so it's better to reset the Lord rather than risking enemies to steal it. Only continue to attack the Lord if you can guarantee there aren't any enemies nearby to steal it. If you want more guides similar to this one, watch this playlist full of guides for roamers.